Coming up on Vegas Nation Blitz, a walk-off win at home. Chandler Jones stiff-armed his way to a Raiders victory.
And I felt myself stumble a little bit after the stiff arm, and then I was thinking, who do I pitch it to? Because I was just trying to, keep the ball alive. And so when I stayed up, I just turned the Jets on, and the rest was history.
We'll break down the Silver and Black's win over the New England Patriots right now on Vegas Nation Blitz.
Powered by the Las Vegas Review-Journal, this is Vegas Nation Blitz. Presented by D&R House of Diamonds, making luxury affordable. Located in the One Summerlin building in downtown Summerlin.
Welcome in, everyone, to this week's episode of Vegas Nation Blitz. I'm your host, Cassie Soto. It's been a few days now since the Raiders' 30-24 victory over the New England Patriots, and I'm still having a hard time believing the final play of the game really happened. Chandler Jones snatching the ball out of the air after a failed lateral from New England's Jacoby Myers to Mac Jones, which ultimately led to the Pats QB getting absolutely embarrassed by the bigger and more athletic Jones. What a win it was for the Raiders, so let's go ahead and get to it with our top stories brought to you by Capriotti's. Make your game day extraordinary with Capriotti's. Order now. Raiders beat writer Vinny Bonsignore joining me now as always. Vinny, I briefly described it in the intro there, but I need your expert analysis. I need you to take us through the final play of this game. Did it really happen? I'm still not sure. I don't think I believe my own eyes. Take us through the final play for the Raiders in the win over the Patriots.
Yeah, imagine being the Patriots and Bill Belichick and Jacoby Myers and everybody else that was involved in that blunder of a play that was so fortuitous for the Raiders. But, honestly, I go back to the play call itself. I don't know what Bill Belichick was thinking. I think there was 4 seconds left when the Patriots got to the line of scrimmage. Look, if you're not going to throw it downfield to either, get a miraculous reception or a defensive pass interference that would have put them potentially in field goal range or something like that along those lines, if you're not going to be that aggressive in it, you're not going to score, where they were lined up on the field on a draw play. So just take a knee, number one. That's the original sin. Secondly, Stevenson gets through the line of scrimmage and starts rumbling down the field. He gets to the 32 where it's, or the Raiders 32, where it's obviously closed off from him. Take a knee. You're going to overtime. It's all good. You got as far as you could. It was a surprise that you made it that far. Just take a knee, go to overtime. Then for him to make the lateral to Jacoby Myers, who I'm defending Jacoby a little bit here, because the last thing that he was expecting was to have the football in his hands at that point. Like, he's like, what just happened? It's a hot potato at that point. He's thinking, all right, I guess we're going down that road. So let me try to find somebody else too. Let's keep this thing alive at that point. And obviously he doesn't see Chandler Jones sitting there over there by about the 50-yard line, tries to lob it over to Mac Jones. Big mistake. Mistakes all the way around by the Patriots. You don't normally see that from a Bill Belichick coach team, but that's what they did.
Are we witnessing the Chandler Jones redemption tour? It seems like he's finally found his footing here in Las Vegas over these last couple of weeks.
Yeah, he's definitely playing better football. By and large, the Raiders defense is playing better football. I know the offenses that they've played these last 2 games aren't great, and one of those games was a loss. But, they held the Rams to 17 points. They held the Patriots to 17 points, 3 in the first half. So they're slowly but surely coming around a little bit to give the offense, an opportunity. Chandler himself getting a little bit more pressure on the quarterback, making some plays. Ironically enough, missed a tackle on that last play of the game. And that's why he was there. That's why the game even was extended to the point that it was. Just a crazy chain of events and some irony involved as well. But yeah, he's playing better football. The Raiders defense on a whole is playing better football, and they better continue to do that in the frigid conditions that they're going to encounter in Pittsburgh against a Steelers team that all of a sudden they're playing pretty well too.
Yeah, you mentioned the Raiders defense, of course. And of course, the only thing that matters at the end of the day, Vinny, is a win. And that's exactly what the Raiders got on Sunday. But then you talk about the Raiders offense and how they sort of just stalled out in the second half. And, their defense had to win this game for the Raiders. A couple weeks ago, we mentioned that these final games, this final stretch is really like a final report card for a lot of these players. So when you look specifically at the Raiders offense, offensive side of the ball. What sort of grades are you handing out here, Vinny?
Well, first and foremost, got to keep in mind that they were really digging in the crates, as old DJs used to say, along their offensive line. You're literally talking about Jordan Meredith getting the majority of snaps over at left guard. Jordan Meredith hasn't been in the Raiders building since mid-September, hadn't played in a game since the preseason in August, got signed to the practice squad last week, got promoted to the regular roster Saturday, 24 hours before kickoff. Never in the million years would have thought that he was going to play. All of a sudden, he has to replace Dylan Parham over at the left side at guard. On the right side, Hronis Grasu, normally a center, has played all of 80 snaps in his career at guard, and that was way back in 2018 with the Baltimore Ravens. He's a center by trade, hadn't played himself since August in the preseason. All of a sudden, he had to get the start at right guard and replace Alex Bars. Well, you know, when that happens, any coach is going to tell you, there goes the playbook. Not much you can do about that other than to be careful and not expect those guys to do too much, not throw too much at them. So I think the playbook changed after the injury to Dylan Parham. The Raiders, tried to basically get through that game, hoping that their defense can keep a lid on what was really an anemic offense from the Patriots. It didn't. It worked to an extent, but in the second half, here come the Patriots roaring back. And now all of a sudden you have to up the tempo offensively. Unfortunately for the Raiders, Derek Carr, a couple of good plays by Mac Hollins, Keelan Cole, guys that have been really stepping up. They were able to be Johnny on the spots to do just enough to get that game tied and then create the scenario, the unbelievable scenario that we ultimately saw on that last play. So it was complimentary football. It wasn't pretty. It was downright ugly at times. But when you're talking about the offense in the second half, you have to also remember where that offensive line is right now.
Well, going back to the last play of the game real quick, Vinny, do we have a name for this game yet, a catchy name? I personally said fear and lateraling in Las Vegas, but people said that was too long. You got anything better?
I think the national broadcast had Sin City Miracle. I know the Raiders, didn't they just trademark Win City? So maybe it's the Win City Miracle if they're in control of it. It's hard to really get a name on it because it was just such a unique play and there was so much going on that to capture it in just a few words, which is what you got to do in this situation, is pretty difficult. So maybe it is Sin City Miracle because it definitely was a miracle.
Around the League, brought to you by South Point Sportsbook. Download the app at southpointsports.com. What's up, everybody? It's time for Around the League. I'm Heidi Fang, and I'm joined right now with Adam Hill to break down some of the top matchups, lots of playoff implications right now as we're heading into Week 16, starting with Thursday Night Football. Jacksonville and the Jets, Adam. Lots on the line in this game. What do you think? How does this one shake out?
Well, first of all, I think the weather is going to be very fascinating. It's supposed to be rainy and ugly and nasty and probably not a whole lot of passing game involved in this one. So the Jets' running game and their ability to stop the run probably plays in a lot to the outcome here. But in terms of the playoff picture, really fascinating. The Jets, I don't think anybody expected to really be in this position. The Jaguars either, but the winner will be in very good position here, especially if it's Jacksonville, because not only do they have a chance at the wild card, they still have a chance to win the AFC South because Tennessee hasn't won in like a month. So they've opened the door for some of these other teams to crawl back in. So Jacksonville in the mix, both the division and the wild card. The Raiders will keep an eye on this one as well, because one of the things that has to happen if the Raiders do win out the rest of the season is that both Jacksonville and New York Jets have to lose a game at some point. That's one of several things that has to happen. One of them will lose here, but the other side of that is that one of them will win. So that's not good for the Raiders' playoff outlook. So a lot that goes into that. But of course, the Raiders are just trying to win their own games.
If the Raiders do win their game, what makes it interesting is the Chargers have a matchup against the Colts on Monday night. This one, the Chargers right now in second in the AFC West. So possibility that if they should lose this game to the Colts, that the Raiders can continue surging ahead and increase their chances of making the playoffs.
Sure, they can, but so we mentioned the Jets and the Jaguars. They both have to lose at least one game the rest of the way. So do the Patriots have to lose at least one game the rest of the way. And then either the Chargers or the Dolphins have to lose two of their last three. But I think the Raiders fans will probably be hoping that's the Dolphins. because the Chargers have a really easy schedule the rest of the way. They'll be favored in every game, including this one against the Colts. We expect them to go beat the Colts. But of course, anything can happen. The Raiders learned that. You can lose to the Colts, even though they have a coach that's never done this before and is kind of a disaster. They did find a way to beat the Raiders, so they might be able to find a way to beat the Chargers. And I think Raiders fans know the Chargers somehow find ways to lose games that they probably shouldn't. So all eyes will be on this one as well.
Sam Gordon here on behalf of Vegas Nation with the Week 16. That's right, the season is almost over. Week 16 injury brief. Raiders getting some good news across the offensive line after managing a number of injuries across the front in the last few weeks. On Wednesday, guard Alex Bars returned to practice on a limited basis, as did tackle Jackson Barton. Guard Dylan Parham also returned on a limited basis. Bars and Parham dealing with knee injuries, Barton with a back injury, and running back Zamir White, who did not participate Tuesday, also returned in a limited basis. Cornerback Rock Yassin still managing a knee injury. He was not a participant on Wednesday for the second consecutive day, while Deron Harmon, the safety, limited with a shoulder neck injury. It is a short week. Raiders go to Pittsburgh on Saturday to meet the Steelers. For more injury updates, go to VegasNation.com, follow Vegas Nation on Twitter, and follow all our Raiders coverage at ReviewJournal.com. Sam Gordon, Week 16 injury brief.
DNR House of Diamonds is Las Vegas's elite private office jeweler, the perfect bridge between internet pricing and a traditional brick-and-mortar jewelry store. We specialize in loose diamonds, natural and lab-grown, engagement rings, fashion jewelry, custom design, and jewelry repairs. We operate by appointment in our beautiful offices in the One Summerlin building, downtown Summerlin. Our great relationships with the world's largest diamond wholesalers and our low overhead saves you hundreds, if not thousands, on your purchase.
With Capriotti's, game day is always extraordinary. Fuel your passion with our award-winning cheesesteaks, in-house oven-roasted turkey, and classic subs. Or create a fan frenzy with our catering trays that are perfect for any crew. At Capriotti's, we deliver extraordinary to you.
Now let's take our weekly look at some Raiders social media. What a win for the Raiders. Let's not waste any time and let's get into it. Everyone knows the timeline exploded once Jacoby Myers threw the ball directly into the hands of Chandler Jones, and the rest is history. Mac Jones getting hit by a Mack truck named Chandler, and he looks like a deer in headlights. And y'all know it's Christmas time. Get Granny out the way. When it's Grandma versus the reindeer's gonna win every single time. Patriots fans in the house leaving absolutely stunned. Just a little bit of Tuck Rule revenge dished out at Allegiant Stadium. Even though the game was flexed out, Sunday had the primetime feel. T-Pain at halftime, Questlove in the house, Marky Mark, Kenny the Jet, Ken Shamrock, and more, all witnessing one of the wildest finishes in NFL history.
Hey, y'all about to we about to give y'all a heart attack. I almost had a heart attack.
Josh Jacobs is all of us. And Chandler Jones was mic'd up for the game, so let's hear the celebration.
Cassie Soto back with you, and I'm joined by Las Vegas Review-Journal sports columnist Ed Graney. Ed, the road ahead will see the Raiders matched up against the Steelers, the 49ers, and the Chiefs to end the regular season. How many of those games do you see the Raiders winning if they happen to commit, say, 13 or so penalties in any of those games?
They're going to win them all if one of the players from the other teams throw back across the field on a lateral when they have no business doing so, and Chandler Jones intercepts the fumble return and takes it back. They could actually be 3-0 if that happens all three times. I don't think it's going to happen all three times, though, Cassie. Look, it's a tough ending. It's supposed to be 11 degrees in Pittsburgh this week. On game day, probably no snow, but still 11 degrees. Then you get a Frisco team who might be one of the best. They are one of the best teams in the NFC, one of the best defense for sure. 7 straight wins counting. And then Kansas City. And the thing with San Francisco and Kansas City, you have to remember, they're probably still going to be playing for seeding. So they're not going to be benching a lot of guys or, playing, backups and stuff like that, which would really help the Raiders' cause in those two situations. I think they're both going to have something to play for, which makes it a really difficult 3 games to win.
Hunter Renfrow and Darren Waller made their returns to the field on Sunday for the first time after being on IR these last few weeks. Waller, of course, had the first touchdown of the game. What do you make of their performances and how they were used on Sunday, Ed?
Yeah, I'm pretty much sure they were on a snap count, so they weren't going to be in there all the time. Darren Waller's touchdown was Darren Waller right down the seam. We've seen it a million times. It was a great throw by Carr, great touchdown. Hunter, I think, had a catch or two, didn't do much. So I think as they progressively get better off the IR, you'll see more from them. The snap count will go back up. And then we'll really get to see this, this whole offense that we've waited all year to see. Now they're hurting the offensive line, so we're not going to see a full offensive line. It's really been an entire year of not seeing what I think everyone had hoped to see going into the season. And I don't know if that's going to be the case now with the offensive line, but I do think Waller and Renfro's numbers will go up in terms of snaps, and we'll see them more with the Devontae Adams, with Derek Carr, with everyone that is at least healthy enough to play.
Last one for you, Ed. Another short week for the Raiders this season. A Christmas Eve game on Saturday versus the Pittsburgh Steelers that I think has a little bit of meaning and some history behind it. And I also believe that day it will be a blistering 13 degrees. How do you see this one playing out for the Raiders, Ed?
I mean, look, if they can handle the elements, I think they're going to have a good chance of winning the game. You have to run in the elements. They have the best running back, if not one of the two or three best running backs in the league, in Josh Jacobs. It's going to come down to that offensive line, though. You've got guys playing in there who hadn't played football until the other day, until last August. I mean, think about that. They hadn't played football in a long time. But those guys have to show up on Christmas Eve. You're going to have to run the ball in those kind of elements. And again, having Waller and Renfrow back will help more, but Josh Jacobs will be the key against the Steelers. And if they can run the ball, I think they'll have a nice chance to get out of there with a win. And I think it's going to be a really close game. I'm not sure on the spread, maybe a one or a pick 'em at this point. So I do think, though, if they can run the ball with Josh Jacobs, they're going to have a better chance than if they don't.
Thank you, as always, for tuning in to Vegas Nation Blitz. For all of your Raiders news, updates, and injury reports, you can head on over to vegasnation.com. And please be sure to join us for Vegas Nation Game Day, airing Saturday morning ahead of the team's Christmas Eve showdown versus the Steelers in Pittsburgh. For our entire Vegas Nation crew, I'm Cassie Soto. Happy holidays.
Powered by the Las Vegas Review-Journal, this is Vegas Nation Blitz. Presented by D&R House of Diamonds, making luxury affordable. Located in the One Summerlin building in downtown Summerlin.